I'm Alan Spears with Occupy Democrats, and in some breaking news, Trump's bid for the presidency this year just received a devastating blow that he may not be able to fully overcome. Now, if you're anything like me, and I'm terribly sorry if you are, you've been watching the Republican National Convention with utter shock and horror. It would seem that the Republicans have decided to double or triple, quadruple down on the crazy and fully embrace the lunacy that is the MAGA nation and Donald Trump. And with the news that Trump has picked J.D. Vance as his running mate this year, the concerns have only continued to grow and the safety and future of our country only continued to seem more perilous. Now, despite the RNC's rather authoritarian tone and blatant Christian nationalism, it has had its moments of frankly hilarity. It would seem that Trump is having a difficult time staying awake or remaining interested in what was being discussed or talked about at the time, including when his son, Don Jr., was at the podium speaking. We've also seen the disgraced former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, stumble and fall his way into the RNC. Perhaps that coffee he was trying to sell was actually an Irish coffee. But I do believe that being drunk first thing in the morning and stumbling your way onto the job is pretty much the Republican motto and work ethic. Now, in addition to the RNC being a breeding ground for practically every kind of phobia that feeds into Trump's rhetoric, the recent assassination attempt on Trump's life has also served to sort of energize and invigorate his base. Further supporting the notion that the MAGA movement is a cult, many of Trump's followers and supporters have started sporting a bandage over their right ear in solidarity with the former president. It's definitely not a cult. Now, while the attempt on Trump's life may have energized his already rabid base, another group has started to come together and run interference to hopefully prevent Trump from getting reelected. Now, in a bit of surprising news, lawyer and activist George Conway had a major announcement recently that was pretty devastating for the Trump campaign to hear. Now, funnily enough, George Conway was married to Kellyanne Conway, which is a name you might recognize as she has appeared on Fox News numerous times and was actually a senior counselor for Trump in his first term in office. Now, ultimately, the two did decide to separate as of last year. However, that may have been for the best, considering who Kellyanne Conway worked for and what George has recently announced. Now, this clip you're about to see doesn't really need too much setup, and I certainly don't want to take away his thunder, so see for yourself what George Conway announced just the other day about his new efforts to prevent Donald Trump from seeing the White House again.
I'm George Conway. This is the most important election of our lifetimes, and I'm sorry to say the most important issue in that election isn't being addressed. Donald Trump has never been right in the head. We've all seen videos of Trump slurring words.
Anonymous, really anonymous.
And then they announced there was no buys, no.
A beautiful criminal United States.
And rambling nonsensically about sharks and electrocution.
You know what I'd do if there was a shark? Or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time.
Hannibal Lecter.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man.
Donald Trump's problem is he's just nuts. I'll let others who know him explain.
He's a populist, authoritarian narcissist.
He is a consummate narcissist.
Governor Chris Sununu called Trump crazy, but
adding, I don't think he's so crazy he should be in a mental institution, but if he were in one, he ain't getting out.
He goes and he starts to say these wacky things. That's what scares everybody about him.
Our country can't be a therapy session for a troubled man like this.
John Kelly sought guidance from a book in which 27 mental health professionals warned that Donald Trump was psychologically unfit.
This man is a pathological liar, a narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen.
Trump is not simply eccentric or odd in a good way. He's unwell, mentally unwell, in a dangerous way. He is indeed a pathological narcissist on a level we have never before seen. He's a malignant narcissist who is also a sociopath or psychopath. What these terms mean is that Trump is a man who cares about nothing but himself. Not you, not the country, not the laws and constitution that a president swears to faithfully execute. And it also means that Trump is a pathological liar and that he lacks any moral conscience or capacity for remorse. These are the psychological characteristics of dangerous cult leaders, and dictators. They shouldn't be the traits of an American president. Now, you haven't heard any of this discussed very much in the media. And that's because too many people are afraid of talking about mental health issues, particularly Donald Trump's. And that's the problem we're here to address. To understand Donald Trump, why he's unfit for office, and why he's a danger to the republic, you have to understand his psychological disorders. Trump's malignant narcissism explains everything about him. It explains his pathological lying.
It's a rigged election. It's the only way we're going to lose.
His misogyny.
Grab him by the pussy.
His racism.
You had very fine people.
News will not replace us!
On both sides.
His authoritarianism. His endless quests for vengeance. His love for dictators. It may even explain his recent praise of Hannibal Lecter. It certainly accounts for his criminality. 4 indictments on 88 counts in 4 courts, and a conviction in one of those courts on 34 counts. 34. All this is why I'm pleased to announce the formation of the Anti-Psychopath Political Action Committee, or Anti-psychopath PAC for short. I'm putting my own money behind this PAC. $343,434.34 to be exact, and we'll be raising a lot more. We're going to use those resources to educate the American public about Trump's psychological unfitness for office. With the help of mental health professionals, we're going to explain how his condition poses a grave danger to our country. We hope you join us. Join us in learning about the dangers of Donald Trump's derangement. Join us in spreading the word. Join us by contributing, to pick a number, $34, or less if you like, or more if you can. Join us and spread the word. This country is too wonderful and important to be turned back over to a madman. Learn more at psychopac.org.
Before we go any further, I just want to say that this video was not sponsored by George Conway's PAC. We just enjoyed it and thought it was a good idea. I really do think, though, that video and what George Conway said spoke for itself. Trump is clearly deranged and mentally unfit to be the president, and he is clearly the single greatest danger to this country and democracy that we have ever faced. The violent and hateful rhetoric that we have seen on full display at the RNC from Trump and all of his supporters is a massive danger and threat to all of us. We have seen Republicans openly admitting to and calling for Christian nationalism and using the blueprints in Project 2025 to turn our democracy into this horrible authoritarian Christian nationalist nightmare. They are not hiding the fact that they want to strip even more rights away from women. They're not hiding the fact that they hold utter contempt from non-heterosexual people. They're not hiding the fact that they have a deep hatred of immigrants, and it doesn't matter if you're here legally or illegally. They want to round everyone up and deport them. It doesn't matter what the consequences are or who is hurt or what families are torn apart. They don't care. They want to carry out this sort of bizarre cowboy justice that in their minds they think is perfectly fine. And this is how it starts. This is always how it starts. You do not need to take my word for it or think that I'm trying to sell you on it. Look at history. Look how historically, when authoritarian regimes rise to power, what's the first thing they do? Find an otherness. Find someone on the outside. Find an immigrant and blame all of the world's problems or woes on them. And I promise you, it won't stop there. I promise you that things can and will get so much worse if people like Donald Trump and his Project 2025 come to power. And let me assure you that even if you're this white Republican from the deep South that you might not really care too much for Trump, but you don't really like Biden either, so maybe you'll go for Trump. That's not enough. This is a man and this is a group of people who demand unfaltering, unquestioning loyalty. Just because you're in the demographic of the chosen right now does not mean that at a moment's notice they will turn their sights on you and your life will be destroyed next. Trump and his ilk are clearly psychopaths, and that is why it's kind of a relief, honestly, for Conway to come forward with this PAC, especially considering you already have a ton of different billionaires like Elon Musk funneling billions into Trump's campaign. It just blows my mind that these people are so obsessed with money. I don't understand. Like, I get money is necessary for a functioning society and to live. I understand that, but this obsession with this number of how much they can make, of how much they can just drain from the working class, it is terrifying and it's inhuman. It is absolutely insane to me how willing so many of these Republicans are to just completely torch Americans. They are not interested in your well-being or doing anything for this country's benefit. They are only in this race for themselves, and that is the epitome of Donald Trump's philosophy. I desperately wish that Trump's base could see how they're being taken advantage of and how Trump, he's not divinely appointed. He is not chosen by God himself. He is not a good man. He's not a good businessman. He was not a good president. He's a con man. He's a grifter, and he is a terrible human being. It is why I and all of us here on Occupy Democrats and so many other people out there on social media spend so much time railing against Trump. He is a danger, and I truly believe in my heart of hearts he will bring about the end of democracy and the country as we know it. And I must push back. And I hope that you will too, with your votes this November and with your money. If you think what George Conway is doing, if you want to go and check out this Anti-psychopath PAC, and if it's something that you resonate with and believe in, consider throwing a few bucks their way. Again, this video was not sponsored by George Conway or his PAC, and I would never want anyone to donate money that isn't financially comfortable doing so. And there are a ton of great other groups out there that are actively working against Trump, so if you do want to donate but you don't want to give it to George Conway, understandable, check them out. But until money can actually vote, the power still, for the most part, relies in the hands of the people, and that is why it is going to be so important for you to register to vote if you haven't already, and if you have, mark your calendars. Tuesday, November 5th is the general election, and it is going to be the single most important election possibly of our entire lifetime, so please get out and vote.